Hi, everybody. I'm Carrie O'Donnell, and we're here to talk about successful faculty partnerships and collaborations. And just so all of you know, we have a lot of instructional designers and instructional design leads and academic technologists in our session today. No surprise. So all of you have a lot of experience with creating successful faculty partnerships. So please feel free to use the chat, ask questions, make comments, add ideas that you have throughout the session today, and we'll look forward to it. Okay, let's advance. So as commented, I'm Carrie O'Donnell, and I grew my hair since I took that picture, by the way, COVID. Anyway, I'm here with Tammy Lockett. I'm gonna have Tammy introduce herself. I'm the founder and CEO of O'Donnell Learn, but I'm at heart an instructional learning designer and really a lover of learning design and learning design experience. And many of you have been with us before and some of you haven't. So my usual often partner in crime is Brett Christie. But today we're going to shake it up, and I want to introduce you to Tammy Lockett, our Director of Learning Design Innovation at O'Donnell Learn. So Tammy.
Everyone, as Carrie said, I'm the Director of Learning Design Innovation at O'Donnell Learn, and I also am very involved in the learning design process and do work as a learning designer, and that's where my heart is as well. So I'm glad to be here today.
Good. Okay, so anyone who's been at our sessions before, and several of you have, many of you have, will know that we almost always have to start here because our company is just completely dedicated to humanized, inclusive, and engaged learning, and it drives everything we do. And I like to keep this picture front and center physically and in my mind all the time as I think about learning, and I think about learning success and what makes successful learning. And I think about both faculty and students. I like to think about this is the environment of today's learners. It's complicated. It's multiple environments, online, virtual. You see on the right top corner, High Flex there, where she's got some people coming in from out of the classroom and some people in the classroom. You've got people learning in their break and people who have a lot of challenges. So I think it's just always good to keep that in mind before we start anything. So when we talk about successful collaboration, I want to kind of start by defining what we think is successful collaboration. So O'Donnell Learn has extensive experience collaborating with faculty to improve learning. We partner with hundreds of faculty members every year, supporting them to create effective learning experiences. I'm very proud that our partner institutions and faculty often praise us for this, and it's because of our leadership team members like Tammy that that's the case. It all starts with a relationship, either one-to-one or between a professional and a small cohort of faculty. And in this relationships, everyone's expertise is honored and respected. And in so doing, collaborators learn from each other. So for example, a learning designer helps the instructor learn new practices for delivering humanized, inclusive, and engaged learning in their course content and leveraging the strengths of that faculty member. Meanwhile, the learning designer learns about the context and constraints and what works best in that faculty member's course environment and course subject area, et cetera. So both can take these learnings into their future work. So a successful collaboration is a great relationship that results in learnings, and most important, and ultimately, it results in improved learning experiences for students. So in today's environment where so many students feel that they received an inferior educational experience during COVID, collaborating to improve the experience is an imperative for all of us. So today we're going to talk about 5 tips for successful faculty partnerships, and we're going to go through each one. And it will probably be no surprise to you that our first tip is keep students front and center. And we're going to talk a little bit the role of collaborating with administration, establishing clear roles, creating that one-to-one relationship, and then we have to touch on intellectual property because it's really lingering and it's a kind of the elephant in the room often. So before we do that, we're going to start by asking each of you to we're going to do an answer garden activity. An answer garden is a live word cloud. And so I thought it would be great to set the context with establishing what are the important elements of successful partnerships. So Kelly just put the answer garden into chat. And what I want each of you to do is copy it and just type small phrases or words that you consider to be the most important elements of successful partnerships. And I'm going to give you like about 30 seconds. So just type more. You can type as many words as you want, as many things as you want as we go. Yeah, I guess it's no surprise to us that trust and communication come out. Respect, listening. Tammy, what do you think?
Yep, those are great. Yeah, that's not a surprise at all. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I think trust is everything. And, it's hard for us to establish trust sometimes, particularly when instructional designers and learning technologists on campus, because sometimes faculty are a little bit dismissive to begin with, and they are and they come to you with one quick answer and want to get in and out. And so it's really important that you establish their trust so that they respect you as an expert. Tammy, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, and that absolutely is. It's really working with that faculty member one-on-one and creating that working trusting relationship based on what you're each there to do, which is the learning designer's there to be supportive and provide insight, and the instructor is the voice of that course.
Yeah, and I think some of the words that came up in here, listening, respect, understanding the goals of both partners, really listening, shared interests, those are great ways to establish trust. Mm-hmm. So this answer garden is going to be with us, so it'll be we'll be sharing it when we share out the results of the slide deck, so you'll get to see it and think about it. But I think we also want to do a second answer garden, same thing, but this one is what are the biggest obstacles to successful partnerships? So please type your answer and let's hear what you have to say. Again, the answer garden is in chat. Kelly, did you put it in chat? Oh, yeah, it's in there.
It's interesting. Yeah, that is the direct opposite.
Mistrust.
It's big.
Fear, Tammy, what, fear. So many times people fear that they're going to be marginalized, mm-hmm. Right?
Yes, or that their work is going to be altered or watered down. That's a really big fear, I think, of faculty.
Or fear of change. Sorry, I'm going to pipe in.
Jump in, Sandy.
Yeah.
By the way, guys, while you're typing here, we have Sandy Keeter with us today, and she's just going to jump in. Sandy is does some learning design work for us and support work for us, but she's also a really active, wonderful faculty member at Seminole State in Florida. And we're going to ask her to jump in at a few times. So I've asked her to join us here at the podium.
And Bridget says fear of change is huge.
Yeah. I think it really is, Bridget. Oh, fear of judgment and insecurity too, Sharon. You got it. Unwillingness to innovate, distrust, resistance. I think we do hear that an awful lot. and lack of respect for the instructional designer or the support team, disinterest, not being incentivized to stay interested sometimes, right? So, okay, well, this is really great. Thank you. And we did these 2 answer gardens at the beginning to set the stage for today's discussion, but also I wanted to make sure that you all know that this is all about interactivity. So keep that chat going, and Tammy and Sandy and I will comment and bring things up as you say them, okay? So I'm going to start with the first couple of the first one here, which is keeping students front and center. And any of you who have been at our webinars, yes, by the way, these word clouds will be shown, will be shared at the end of this as part, we'll put them as a PDF on the, or as a graphic on the slide deck and share that back out with you. So keep students front and center. I want to show something that we use a lot, and forgive me if you've seen a few of these slides, but I think they're just really important to set the context here. But this is a Zoom room, right? And I like this view of a Zoom classroom, because when we look at this, we can think about what we can do to systematically address all of the diversity and need for belonging in the class. One thing we try to do is to tackle things one at a time, to reflect on one student or one pervasive student challenge, such as dealing with parenting as an online student, juggling a job and children, and then also children and other family members Zooming alongside you. We try to encourage faculty to create policies that take these issues into account. But I'm also going to channel Brett, who's my frequent co-conspirator in webinars and conference presentations. And he likes to talk about Maslow's before Bloom's. So I'm sure many of you are familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs shown on the left. Its premise is that if your basic needs for food, housing, security, and safety are not met, you can't attend to your higher order needs. And in this pandemic period, where so many psychological needs have been surfaced, getting to self-fulfillment needs is, and self-actualization is exceedingly difficult. And higher education is really all about self-actualization, right? So if your students don't know where they're going to sleep tonight or next week, or they have food insecurity, it makes it very difficult for them to thrive in the academic environment. So we really have to understand our students and who's in the room, the Zoom room or the physical room. Similarly, though, Bloom's taxonomy is actually built on, it was kind of a mirror framework to Maslow's hierarchy. And it's built on the idea that lower levels of thinking must be grasped before a learner can access higher levels of thinking. So if your basic needs are met, you can engage in moving up the scales towards higher order thinking and learning. So I think we just always have to keep that in mind as we're thinking about our students. So there's one tool that we use, and you've probably seen it if you've been at any of our, many of our webinars, is an empathy map. There's none better to put yourselves in the shoes of your particular students. It gives you a pause to think about what students do, see, say, think, or hear in your class, and what you want them to do, see, say, think, or hear, and also to pause on their needs and think about their needs. It really grounds you. So Sandy, I know you've got some tools that you guys use for keeping students front and center.
Well, as a faculty member, I wouldn't have a job if my students weren't there. So obviously they are front and center, but it takes a village. I think you indicated that early on, that it takes a community to be able to support our students. And we have amazing support services throughout the college. I just posted that I think that we've got everything that the students need to meet those the Maslow hierarchy of needs before they come to the classroom, and I can focus on Bloom's. But we all have to keep our students front and center. I mean, it's my livelihood. But I've just learned over the years by attending things like this, the empathy piece of it that maybe I didn't have before. So that's become more front and center. But we've got a food pantry, scholarships, technology, PC loaners. But one sample of us all coming together, the entire campus coming together to support the students, was our how we started high flex classes. You know, we had our technology people add what we needed to the classroom. We had our learning designers help us figure out what to do synchronously and asynchronously. And it was just a community, and our students thrived in that environment because if they were sick, they didn't have to come to campus. If they needed that one-on-one, they came to campus or they did the Zoom thing, but they also had the freedom to do it asynchronously at another time. And just be open to change. That's all I'm going to say is throughout all of this, you just have to be open to change, or your students' needs won't be met.
Thanks, Sandy. That's good. Okay, so the next point, collaborate with administration. This is really important. Tammy really reminded me of this. Academic leadership can make all the difference in an educational initiative, such as redesigning a gen ed course or creating a new program. We have, wait a second, sorry about that. I lost something. I lost my thought, and these things happened occasionally. Most institutions that we work with have limited resources and not enough internal staff to support faculty in the changing environment where COVID is so important. And so when academic leaders collaborate with us or with the internal administrative team, with the instructional design team, the academic technology team on campus, things go much more smoothly. And when not, initiatives get stalled and sometimes aborted. So one of our partner institutions, I'm going to give you an example. One of our partner institutions asked us to help them with building many micro-credentials, dozens of them. They had an initiative from the president, a mandate from the president, and they had some funding for this. But faculty at the institution didn't see, it was a research institution, they didn't see it as their role, and few signed up for the initiative. In this case, they were appropriately incentivized, because incentivizing faculty and or paying them for work that's above and beyond, finding ways to incentivize them is really important. But there wasn't a sufficient plan in place for partnering academics with outside subject matter experts who were workforce development, workforce experts who could help them develop these micro-credentials and take some of what they teach in an academic context and turn it into a much more skill-based and workforce-oriented context. Then the other thing that happened is when professors fell behind in the schedule, there was no meaningful escalation policy. And so partially developed programs weren't completed. And we felt really badly because we had, we were really wanted this to be successful, and we felt like it didn't succeed because the collaboration mechanisms weren't in place. Has any of you seen this happen or this type of thing happen before? In our experience, it's all too common. On the other hand, strong leaders put faculty front and center, ensuring they're supported and recognized, and understanding common faculty fear that their job is being, that we just talked about earlier in the answer garden discussion. So I think this is a really important thing. There's a second area of faculty collaboration that we find can make all the difference in the world. And that is setting clear standards and guidelines. Next slide. One of the easiest ways for faculty to support, for administration to support faculty, is by creating tools, templates, and guidelines that make it easy for the faculty to think about their course, their expertise, leveraging their expertise, and how to do that in the best way, and not have to worry about spending a lot of time trying to figure out how things get done. So take the guesswork out of common practices, such as the syllabus and welcome page by creating templates and examples. So one of our most popular services at O'Donnell is something we call it the course design kit. And basically we work with our partner institutions to create designs right in Canvas that can be used for, or Blackboard or D2L or whatever. Sorry, I know there's some Blackboard folks here, but so it went right in the learning management system that can be used to make it the course more visually pleasing and more intuitive for the students and set up the course properly. And here's a really simple one. This is a course homepage we've shown here. This gives a template that faculty can fill in. We give scripts and ideas for opening and welcoming videos, passion videos, I like to call them, and design templates. So one of the things we do in this kits is also we include examples of common learning activities and how to do them within the learning management system and how to administer them. And so finally, clear guidelines and some faculty development on things that faculty don't want to spend a lot of time with, but are important, like learning outcomes and objectives, right? Or rubrics, how to do rubrics to make activities more effective by making them having them a clear expectation of grading with a rubric. So these can save faculty time and on spending their time to interact with students rather than trying to design a rubric. So anyway, let me see if there's any comments. Thank you. Yes, Stanley. It's important to communicate the needs for change to happen. So finally, the last thing in terms of collaborating with faculty, one of the things we hear all too often is that there's no guidepost for what is an effective learning experience. Now, many of the schools, many institutions use one of the gold standard evaluation rubrics like Quality Matters, COLTS, which is often used in the Cal State system, comes out of the Cal State system, or Oscar that comes out of SUNY. And these are great tools and rubrics for evaluating online courses and online programs. But as everybody is mass moved online with COVID, we found that schools are often saying, we need a simple guidepost, like what is a good course and what's effective on learning in any modality or environment. So if you look at this, we created a framework that's pretty simple. And on the left side are all of the functional elements that are important to making a course successful. And on the right are more of the delivery elements that a lot of the rubrics are focused on design, not delivery. So humanizing the course and learner empathy, creating your class as a community, making sure that you've got accessible content and technology, equity, inclusivity, finding techniques and practices. And what we do with our partner institutions is we share out tools, templates, and practices for all of these 8 elements. And so I think that, and I'm telling you about this because this is a free and open tool, and a lot of our elements are free and open. And if you're interested, we can give you access to our whole array of free and open stuff. So Tammy, I'm going to turn it to you now. Molly, could you advance?
Okay, Carrie, I was just talking, muted. We're going to talk now. Thank you, Carrie. We're going to talk now about tip 3, which is establishing clear roles for stakeholders.
Oh, and by the way, Tammy, before you jump in, please comment, guys. We'd like to hear your interaction. So keep going. Go, Tam.
Okay, so if we could go to the next slide. Okay, so to ensure an efficient and successful collaborative experience, it's important to establish clear roles and responsibilities. And the faculty member is obviously the expert on the subject matter and responsible for not only authoring the course, but also interjecting their voice, their passion for teaching, and their insight into professional industry. And here we've defined 3 roles which are similar in that they all support faculty in developing courses. However, they are each a bit different in what that support looks like. And so you can see here, our first group is the faculty developer. And this role typically works for the Center of Teaching and Learning. They run workshops, they set the institutional standards, and generally support better teaching practices institutionally. And the second is a learning designer, who typically we work on projects involving one-to-one collaboration with faculty to help design or redesign a course. Our job is to cultivate innovative ways to leverage faculty's strengths and expertise to create effective learning, and then also to push the boundaries of innovation. And then finally, the third is a learning technologist. And this role typically works for the Office of Learning Technology. They support faculty in using technology, and this can be software intended to be used for a specific assignment or a project by the faculty member, such as Miro. Or it could be support for a campus-wide software, such as an LMS or a third-party enterprise tool, such as VoiceThread or Turnitin. And these people meet with faculty one-on-one by appointment and offer innovative workshops on technology. So they're also innovating every day in terms of really pushing the envelope of creating new and more fluid learning experiences. So they're all similar in that way. So this brings us to some faculty feedback and what we consider to really be a successful collaboration. The learning designer brings in tools that I don't have or that I can't envision. She has an experience in other kinds of classes, working with a variety of populations of students. I know my students, I know my content, but I have to be able to think outside those lanes. And she throws me a bunch of examples of different interactive learning approaches. And I can say, ooh, that's the one. And so several of you, I think, have experienced this when you're working with faculty. And we see here that the learning designer is really a catalyst to new perspectives and new ideas that connect faculty to practice ever-evolving standards and learning experiences. And so learning experiences, as we all know, are constantly changing. And so that's really the great thing about what we do is to really be in the middle of that and to continue to ask questions and help it evolve and see where it lands, which is really exciting. And so if we could go to the next tip.
It's Sandy, Tammy,
Yep.
Can I just interrupt for 1 second? I think, it's interesting because when I was talking to Sandy before, she brought up a thought about how the role of faculty is really important too, and that the faculty can have shared governance. If they can have a strong shared governance, they can really help to support administrators and the support team in what they do. So Sandy, if you could just jump in for a moment and talk about how that works.
And I was telling you, I said that there are some faculty that just want to teach their classes, never change, and just kind of be in a silo. I'm not like that. I want to be involved in the college, and we are required to be on committees, but some will do the minimum. But that shared governance is so important because I teach computing and I want my labs to have top-notch technology. And by being on the tech committee, I'm helping, make that change happen for everybody on campus. And we've got a great learning design team, and they'll offer webinars, and I go and attend and I get to know them. They come to our welcome back and show all these new tech tools. But the faculty, everyone, faculty, staff, everyone's got to take that initiative to be open to the change and learning new things and, communicating their needs. And it just, nothing's going to happen if you're living in a silo. So I know it's different personalities, but I just say, try to get your faculty, if you're learning designers, to attend some of these things, offer some online sessions and get to know them, because then I think they'll be more open to doing what you ask them to do or to make that change in their classes.
Thanks, Sandy.
Mm-hmm.
This gets right back to Tammy's next point. I'm creating a personalized, humanized experience for faculty so they can get involved.
Yep, that's our tip 4. All right, and so if we could go to the next slide. The goal here is really to meet faculty where they are. And in August 2020, after the spring and summer remote, we conducted a series of focus group discussions with faculty and then conducted a survey of 450 faculty members from schools across the country. And this is what we learned. If you look on the left of the pie chart, you'll see 42% of the respondents have taught online 2 or fewer times, which basically refers to COVID remote teaching. And on the right, you can see that nearly half mirror their face-to-face course rather than designing their course for online, which we all know is not an effective practice. And yet we asked them about their confidence in their teaching online and received a resounding 6 out of 7, with 7 being highly confident. And so even though if they're new to it and they're trying to figure it out as they go, they really are confident about teaching online. And what we got out of that is that our collaborations with faculty and our role as supporters needs to keep in mind that we need to meet faculty members where they are. And so, so really tapping into that confidence level and helping support them in ways that maybe they haven't thought of yet. So if we could go then to the next slide. And in addition, we asked faculty to tell us approximately how much time do you dedicate to each of the following when preparing to teach a course with an online component. And as you can see here, the faculty report that they spend considerable time on average working on their courses. And that's because faculty teach, for the most part, they don't design, but they continually iterate their courses. And so that means, as you all likely know, they spend an awful lot of time trying to figure out how to implement their vision in an LMS. So how to set up a quiz or a discussion, how to assign and facilitate groups. And so at O'Donnell, we tried to help faculty spend the time more effectively and efficiently, and as well in other roles as well as instructional technologists and then also developers. That's really our common denominator. And so if we go to the next slide. And so a great way to establish a partnership with a faculty member is for the instructor to begin by reflecting on what they do, what they want to do to change in their course. And we've developed a tool that aligns with our framework to help faculty reflect and plan the changes they'll make to a course. And so a faculty member will complete the Purposeful Learning Check, which requires self-reflection, and then they'll meet one-on-one with a learning designer or a coach or even a peer to discuss and brainstorm ideas. So it's really that moment that helps set a stage for the conversation and really hopefully makes a strong opportunity for people to just really be creative, for faculty members to really be creative in the way that they approach their teaching, and the conversation will evolve in that direction. So then we'll go to the collaboration. And most of these collaborative efforts begin with listening to faculty describe their course and current approaches to teaching them, and then ask questions geared toward helping them formulate their key objectives, or what do they want their students to be able to do when they've completed the course. And what I think is interesting about this first meeting is how often faculty say that looking at their course from this perspective is new. And that it's prompted them to rethink their current assessments, because now the learning experience is not just to move to the next course or for a grade. It's to directly connect the experience to the future goals of their students. And that underscores higher stakes. It seems to emphasize the importance of this process of taking the time to reflect and plan. And so I've worked with several SMEs from the Department of State Special Agent Training Unit, which covers very serious subjects like the use of force. These trainings included the legality of an agent's responsibility in the event that they are required to use force and possibly kill someone. Our approach to the subject was scenario-based, where trainees were asked to watch a scenario and then complete a series of knowledge checks. And while we were developing these scenarios, it was during COVID, and the production options were really limited to do these in a live action video. But also live action video left sort of too much interpretation to the producer for something that was very specific. And so we determined that a graphic novel style with a series of illustrations and text bubbles with soundscapes would really not only allow us to tell a story, but it would also allow us to control and capture the moments in time so the user could study details of an incident. And that's so important to this type of subject matter. And so, so details of an incident, such as prior to the use of force, when the agent was addressing a potential suspect, did they show their badge, or was their badge visible? And so just sort of really approaching something that may be somewhat obvious in the beginning, to really start to think about, all right, what are the specific needs of really conveying that information to these students, and what do they need to get out of it, can really evolve the innovative approach that you work with. And so that's just one example.
Hey, you know, I have another example. I'll just put it in here. It's a more academic, although this was with the school too, but you know, this is another one, and it's intelligence. And we're working with a institution on a Homeland Security program. And the instructor in this particular intelligence course was a previous former CIA agent. And in her face-to-face course, she tends to bring in a lot of her old CIA colleagues to talk to the students and give them a sense of what goes on in the real world in the day-to-day. But online, this methodology doesn't work as well, to have these lengthy lectures by guest lecturers all the time. And also, she really wanted the students to be more active in their learning and to really to put themselves in the shoes of an intelligence officer. So she designed, with Tammy, I will brag, a entire a set of project-based learning. And one of her projects was for students to break into groups, and every week one group would create the president's daily brief, which we've all heard about because some presidents don't read it and others do, right? And so they created the president's daily brief, and then the rest of the class act as like the next national security analyst. And sometimes she'd bring in one of her friends from the CIA to be a kind of an analyst who would critique and ask questions and put this into a real life scenario. And it was a great application for students and a great project. So there's a lot of ways, if you collaborate right, you can take something that a faculty member does really well and make it even better. So
Yes, one of my favorites.
I'm sure that you have stories
the whole time.
Yeah.
Okay, and so now that we're to our last tip, tip 5 is really can be somewhat of a hot button issue, and it's really talking about the transparency and intellectual property policies. And so if we go to the next slide. Again, in the wake of COVID and the transition to online learning, many colleges and universities are being faced with a pressing need to be more transparent about intellectual property rights on faculty authored content. And so we found this example of a policy that states the university waives its ownership rights in academic copyrightable works, except when academic copyrightable works were specifically assigned and funded by the university, developed with significant use of university resources, or developed under an externally funded agreement with the university. And the university shall have a perpetual non-exclusive royalty-free license to use such academic works. And so this is pretty standard, or has historically been pretty standard, and definitely leans towards the rights of protecting faculty members' intellectual property. And so now with the dawn of, if we go to the next slide, with online learning and really the big push that had to happen, as this subject continues to become more relevant, policies that are specific to digital course and online program development are being applied. And so
Next slide, Molly.
Oh,
Right.
sorry. And so in this example, this is actually from the same institution, and it's an addendum, and it's the university shall have a perpetual no development or teaching of courses for other entities. A faculty member may only design, develop, or teach a course for another entity if it does not compete or conflict with the current university digital learning or online initiatives. And in this context, the use of the faculty member's voice or video image shall be deemed to constitute the teaching of a course. In the event that no current conflict exists, the university has the right to first refusal. So that's very much like a publishing contract, right? And so this is really where the discussion, I think, we think needs to happen with faculty members and institutions, because if the person developing the course is a tenured professor and who's been with this institution for several years, the likelihood of them staying there is much higher and the risk is lower. But if the instructor is an adjunct and as such possibly teaches the same or similar courses for several institutions, this can severely limit their options throughout their career. And so if you have a faculty member who is having an issue or concern around this topic, I would encourage you to encourage them to escalate their concerns with the institution, because oftentimes they will make adjustments or special circumstances around their concerns. So, and it will also help to prompt a larger discussion if more faculty are asking these questions and really trying to get an understanding of, what happens if they leave the institution.
Yeah.
And so if we go to the next slide. So on the subject of intellectual property rights, as we were just saying, we'd like to leave you with the article published in Inside Higher Ed that talks about the importance of these kinds of issues being addressed by the institution's faculty senate to not only protect the rights of faculty, but also to create a positive collaborative working relationship between faculty and the institutions they work for. Because traditionally that relationship between the administrators and the faculty has always been one of extreme respect. And in most institutions, the faculty are the final say because they're the ones that bring the real value to the institution. And so to maintain that relationship, that very positive, supportive relationship from administrators to faculty, these conversations do have to be sorted out because it can create issues later in that environment. All right, I'm sure people have some comments or some ideas around intellectual property. Is it sort of a thing that's coming in the forefront?
Yeah, please throw your comments in chat. I mean, have you guys seen this as an issue? Does this come up a lot in your institutions? Love to hear your comments. So we're going to turn this to discussion and we're going to do a little Padlet conversation in a few minutes. But first, I'm going to ask you to share, we gave you our 5 tips. Are there other tips that you'd like to contribute or share to creating successful collaboration with faculty in your experience and that you found really works well? This is you guys have a lot to share, so we'd like to hear from you. So give it a few moments. Okay, a little quieter than usual. That's what I'd like to do is, I think a lot of schools, faculty, I mean, I'm seeing a lot of this coming up that schools are really starting to have this discussion about IP. And again, it's really important to get to just hear the voice of all the players, all the stakeholders, hear every voice, right, in that discussion. So shared area for note from meetings, tools used throughout collaboration, etc. Oh yeah. Faculty sometimes are so concerned about IP and copyright that it prevents them from moving content online. How do you address that? That is such a good question. Tammy, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, and that is really why it's so important for the institution to present transparency. And I don't know, though the example that we used, I think is making a very clear attempt to do that, but it may not necessarily be the perfect solution for a faculty member, which is why it's important for faculty to say, what does this mean exactly if I'm an adjunct? And this is my life, what does this mean? To ask those questions and to go to opportunities like your faculty senate and formulate what it is you would like to see. I thought it was interesting in the first description that I read to you about how the institution maintains royalty-free licenses, but we're not actually granting faculty royalties. So what does that mean, right? They're publishing their online courses. It's their work, they're authoring it, but there are no royalties attached. It's work for hire, essentially. It looks like a kind of a situation where it's work for hire. So, it might be something to discuss.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Michelle said, tip 5 is pretty dense and complex. I agree, because schools don't have ability to pay royalty to faculty. So, I mean, right. It's like, so it's just like there's a complicated, it's very complicated. But I think the most important thing to do is to support to listen, right? We all, going back to our original answer garden, listen and acknowledge, but make sure that whatever the policy is that it's clear for faculty so that there aren't questions about it.
Mhm.
Ayla, I like your comment. I found it helpful to assess faculty's capacity for change by asking what the most recent change they made in their teaching course curriculum pedagogy was and what the impact of that change were. I think that's a really good practice. And I'm going to show you a little practice that we have a little bit later on. And we're near our end, by the way. So I want to go really quickly to a Padlet. Could you put that Padlet on there? We are, go on in, and what we're going to do is we're just going to spend a few minutes looking at these 5 tips. And I just want to give you one more opportunity to say, what have you done that's really worked well? And what obstacles have you encountered? And so if we'll just take a few moments to do that, and then we're going to start to wrap it up. I want to show you a few practices that we have, and then we'll wrap it up. By the way, you just press that plus button and you should be able to type in really easily. Yeah, and I think it has to be. Okay. Yeah, I think this is some days people prefer to listen and not. Oh, here you are. Use data to reveal gaps in learning, vulnerable moments in class, etc. I think that's great. If you can maybe give an example of that, that would be really great to hear. Whoever wrote that, I would love to hear that. Ensure faculty have measurable objectives. I think it's true. I think ensuring students have measurable objectives is really important. Well, I guess that's ensure faculty to keep students front and center.
And on the intellectual property comment, one of the things that adjuncts can do if they're asked to do a course that will then be owned by the institution is to ask for a staff position. If it's an institution they want to commit to, it's an argument for saying, if I invest in you, would you invest in me? And so, there are definitely positive things that can come out of it, I think, and having those conversations.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of schools, this next one obstacle with faculty who design a course for other faculty to teach intellectual property needs to be clearly established. I mean, in many schools, adjunct faculty are just given the course. They're given all the materials, the course, the assessments, everything. And really all their contribution is on that right-hand side of our framework, the humanizing building classes community. And so it is really important for us to be really clear, or for institutions to be really clear as to what the policy is.
And the policies definitely vary from, institutions. It seems everyone's sort of, creating something that's custom for their needs.
I like this concept of collaborate with administration. Always have communication tours of your initiatives. So many times we just forget to communicate, right? And say, here's what we're trying to do. Here's why we're doing it. And that example I gave before where, I think the president didn't, and the administration didn't really lay out why they felt that micro-credentials were so important for this institution, and get faculty to understand why they're doing it and why it's important to get involvement and get people to get involved. So Course Development Institute, faculty were students, and I modeled effective, personal, timely feedback, course design options, et cetera, as they developed courses step by step for a new modality. They never taught online before the pandemic. We do those. We do something we call Jumpstart. It's similar to a Course Development Institute. Our philosophy is learn while doing. So I'm all in on having the institute go while faculty are actually designing and developing their course, because too often when you do a workshop, it's out of context and then faculty don't actually remember later on. So Tammy, any comments on?
I'm sorry.
Any comments on the establishing clear roles? Oh, that's a great
Not a successful one, right?
when working.
Visual aids, I love that suggestion is really clarifying exactly what it is the expectations are and what the process is to your faculty member up front. It's definitely
I was just going to make a comment about the establishing clear roles. I know what my job as a faculty is, but I also have taken a real active part in the design of my course as well. And I do think that sometimes we do have to cross lanes. Because, in order to, again, to support our students and make sure things are happening. So I don't just live in this lane and stay in this lane. It's important to cross over, but with that communication factor.
right. And I feel like that by it really varies on the individual faculty member, but as they work more with technologists and learning designers, they learn. And really our job or our role is to teach them how to be self-sufficient and to be interested and find their own tools and to explore the possibilities on their own. And that generally tends to evolve, I think, as you work with faculty.
Okay, we're going to wrap it now. We're going to just want to give you, if we can move on to the next, I want to give you two things that O'Donnell does that can really help. Mal, if you could just open up the next slide. The next slide here, the one after that. So one of the things that we've done that really, really works well for collaborating with faculty is we created something we call the Purposeful Learning Check, and it goes alongside our framework. And it's a free and open tool. And we're redesigning it to make it a slider tool so that faculty can say, I do this, I do this, I do this, and they can kind of figure out where they stand and how they kind of looking at their own, self-reflecting on their own welcome and introduction, for example. And then what we do is we ask faculty to reflect on what are the 2 or 3 things they'd like to change based on having gone through this activity, take notes during it. And we're redesigning it to make it really, really, really friendly. And it's going to be out in about a week or 2. So we'll be sending it to you as a follow-up. And I think it's an open education resource you can use. We find that a lot of our partner institutions use this regularly as a tool. So what the faculty might use it as a tool as they're thinking about what they want to do, starting a new course, redesigning their course, or just iterating their course. And then you can come back to it. So actually the way we usually use it is the faculty self-reflect, and then they meet one-on-one with a coach, a mentor, a designer, and talk about what they want to do and brainstorm together. So you can make it a collaborative activity. And when you do that with a designer, often, and you can also do it so that the designer evaluates the course and the faculty self-evaluates if you're redesigning a course. And what happens is it creates a common language and a common understanding. And it starts with what the faculty is reflecting on, what they want to do. And it creates a really great tool for great collaboration between faculty and designer. So that's available to you. We have it now in a format that's more rigid, and now we're creating a new version of this. The last thing I want to just talk about is that we do have a faculty success program that is really designed to be very affordable for institutions who need more support for their faculty than their internal instructional design and technology teams can provide. And if you're interested in learning more about it, please reach out to us because we'd love to talk to you about it. It's a really great way for you to engage more faculty than you're able to with your current team. And it's very, very reasonable and affordable. We charge it as a per faculty per month fee. And we have a program that we call the Faculty Success Program, which is a 3-month program to get faculty jump-started into delivering humanized, inclusive, and engaged learning, and to help supporting them to use all the tools and resources that we have. As I said, many of them are open, not all are. Last but not least, just want you to know about our last few webinars for the semester. On Wednesday, April 20th, Instructor Success Drives Student Success, Learning Experience Solutions to Help Faculty Thrive. And then on Wednesday, we're going to bring in our partners from Archer to talk about storytelling. And Archer is a really great branding and marketing company that we work really closely with, and they're really good at storytelling. And then we're going to kind of relate that to humanized and inclusive learning. So thank you for joining us today. And as usual, you're welcome to contact us afterward. Please feel free to email or be in touch, and have a wonderful day. And thank you to Tammy, and thank you to Sandy for all your contributions.